Impact of protocol Adam and Eve to the DNA protocol and protocol bloodlines, definition of bloodlines, and definition of organization and family as organizational unit of the society. Now, when we usually discuss matters, we always need context, and we always end up talking about some kind of purpose or purposefulness in what we do. When we talk about DNA, now there are two approaches. One that is purely scientific, the other that will need to be in reference to organization of our societies. Now, I have not noticed that within definition of monarchy protocol, the organization of societies and fabric of families have been taken into consideration. The protocol Adam and Eve is making it all much more complex because both of the protocols happen in two genders. Adam happened in two genders, Eve happened in two genders. So we don't talk here about gender protocol. We talk about kind protocol. We also somehow subconsciously, silently understand human as the top of the evolutionary chain. Human walks on the top of the evolutionary chain of the animal world. So human is the most intelligent being. It might be that we need to revise that particular statement in terms of what has been started to be called as a human versus what we actually understand to be a human in some kind of social agreement, civilizational kind of consequence. But then all of that departs eventually from the biological dimension of biological human. We might need to talk about two categories of human: biological human and human as a civilizational event. To the extent that none of us really associate to some kind of prime stages, we are all product of mixed breeding. We may all choose to actually discuss these matters with less sense of attachment, to be much more neutral, to choose to be much more neutral, especially when it comes to protocol human that we all, I have no doubt, have chosen to define by, and everything else that would be just factors that lead towards us reaching and declaring that dimension, so would not need to discriminate anyone on the ground of origin to the extent that we all represent product of mixed breeding. However, that also will exclude some random supreme nomination accounts to take place. As it has happened actually that certain territories certainly are very easy on using reference supreme leader, things like that, and very much walk closer to religion, where everything is much more in secrets and in clouds than some kind of declaration of some kind of protocol that we can call protocol human. We don't have that on the planet. We don't have the protocol, but we have some various situations where reference to supreme and supreme leader has been used, and that will need to be now questioned. Not questioned, but restricted. Because we have to deliver first protocol human on earth, how we all understand it, and then we do the assessment of the what kind of administration we are going to talk about. Also, we talk about planetary phenomenon. It's not national phenomenon. It's planetary event. So that it will need to be taken into comprehension, and in certain ways, all of that will need to be approved in order and accepted by the planet in order to have any more serious legitimacy. Everyone kept bringing forward few momentums I want to clarify here in this context today, and that is the entire concept Adam and Eve I just mentioned, and also someone constantly bring to me my sister event here. And then I want to talk about how we draw the real matrix of organizing societies. So when it comes to organizing societies, therefore, it is not going to be enough just to say Mother anymore. It's going to be also question, are we talking about Mother Eve or we are talking Mother Adam? Because these two mothers are not the same, you don't get same effect from the two. They as a CEO and secretary, actually. Basically, you have a main role here, which is Adam Mother, and then you have assistants. It cannot be in any other way. This is vital momentum. I'm going to bring it forward on first account. Well, the science of DNA science were very much meddling about importance of gene of father. A second momentum here. What is important in building societies is to have strong family, and that is all happening when you have strong mother. Then it is natural family event. We have strong father. It usually end up into totalitarian regime protocol. We have strong mother. Then we have actually real matrix of the society. Strong mother brings principal care over her kids, attention to proper healthy raising of kids, and as a result you get healthy society. Weak mother end up into over democratic society where everyone end up walking over it, and you lose the shape of the society. That is where Westlands today have found themselves in this kind of summary account. They're completely over democratized and completely diluted, and that is because Eve Mother ended up to be in charge of Western society. As a result, Western society today is being walked over and in complete decline. Now, relationship, myself and my sister. When it comes to character, there are two major differences in the character. In any case scenario, in all the time I felt very protective of her. Also, just 1 year difference. Obviously, because I exist on much more mature protocol, I constantly felt very protective, and that's still the present time. She and responsible in many ways. Maybe because I'm born with these features as well, so get to the character. In any case, at earlier times, it could have been noticed certain departures. She started to manifest her habits differently than how I manifested my habits. So it started to happen, the element of departure. She was also would end up to be donkey character, not easy to agree with. There was some kind of element of resistance, and there was harder to bring everything on the line of reason. I didn't get that in that relationship. First of all, I was super disciplined. She was nothing of being disciplined. I was super organized. She was nothing of being organized. I was super clean. She was nothing of being pedantic. We existed as a complete opposite. I was reasonable. She was rebellion. She was rebelling. However, because of my more mature nature, that relationship was functioning upon me being more taking actually this kind of protective role. And it was always obviously principal position agreeably in silent agreement taken by myself because I was older and because I was having more commanding features of my character. So that somehow was unspoken prevalence. There was nothing much to talk about it. As my sister, to me, that is how that exists. There is nothing much there too much personal, but as I have found to my devastation, it turned to be the entire weight of such society on my shoulders. It is one thing to say, okay, I provide some kind of protective function. The other to find yourself kicked out from your own house, discredited, not discredited, but not respected properly, not appreciated properly, even denied. That's ridiculous. First of all, I cannot take even any of it seriously. First of all, I cannot take any of it seriously because I can't take it seriously. Because I can't take anything seriously from something like that exists in such normative. I can't take that side seriously. That is where we are today. And that is where I'm going to say there is no here a room where one can talk about competition, because there is not much that we can compete about here in this context. Adam and Eve cannot compete. As simply as it sounds. In the protocol Adam and Eve, we don't have two competing sides because there is nothing to compete about. Now, what happens when we need to talk with most serious manner and in most responsible manner as a humanity of 7 billions? What happens when you talk about organization of societies and matrix of society, when you talk about monarchy, for example, as a power center, as a decision-making center? Are you still going to be ignorant that we have Adam and Eve phenomenon on the planet? And that we have absolutely no clue how to manage it? Because there is no protocol that is taking into consideration Adam and Eve phenomena to begin with. There is no official legal ground established on the planet that is going to provide any kind of indication that we have that situation that we need to deal with exactly on these parameters I just have explained. I have left some room for mixed bloodlines. Here the question is, when it is in question mixed bloodline, is what prevails. No one is recognizing that. There is no place where we can even discuss these matters. Yet this is the matter we need to discuss. So, how we explain first of all Adam and Eve without DNA science employed? Let's bring DNA scientists to explain to us the phenomenon Adam and Eve without any political backing. So what I can say here on first hand, let's notice that we have some kind of humanoid human. That we saw something like that in Lord of the Rings. It looks like a human. It's not exactly a human, but it's the most closest to a human form. Of bioforms, the closest to human form. That is what would be Eve. Then we have Homo sapiens, that obviously bring a much more configuration. And that would be in category of Homo sapiens, or monkeys, most popular. But clearly they bring a stronger DNA configuration. So when you mix the two, you get our human. With the strength that you can't find in the organic human exactly. So in that context, certain prime tribes, as for example Maoris, or certain also in Maoris, you will also find the phenomenon Adam and Eve. Or you find it in Indians, you find it in Africa. But it is, you still talk about Adam, wherever you go on these territories, you still have Adam and Eve protocol. So we talk about most earlier event here, where literally we can talk about two people or about very, very narrow very, very small biopopulation on Earth. Most earlier times, where we can discuss in some kind of scientific conditions of isolated events here and figure out how we get the formula for human in full capacity, how we understand human today. But as far as I can notice, what they are increasingly now talking about, this kind of humanoid human, is not exactly the Adam protocol. And it's not going to be good enough to defend the human protocol in the way how we understand human today. So to talk about supreme leaders will exist on that side, on the F side of the equation, is simply not the correct answer in the given circumstances that exist on the planet. We cannot legitimize that. Now, I want to be very clear on this. We cannot legitimize that. We have to talk with 7 billion of people. It's clear by now where the formula human sits in terms of performance, and that we talk here about mixed bloodlines. Constitution of Earth, we talk about two events when human in question. We talk protocol human of Earth, we are going to call it human of Earth. We all agree that that is excellence of performance in any single regard. We all know what that means by now. That's why I'm talking about certification and nomination and things like that. And rank and standardization and Excalibur and King Arthur, things like that. Which cannot be Eve account, that is Adam account. That is principle account. And then we talk organizing society, we are teaching, we are taking care, things like that. We have protective societies. How that defines. So today we are going to work within the Constitution, therefore, protocol realm Earth, protocol human of Earth, and then protocol Adam and Eve. And then we get complete picture what is the principal problem on the planet that we need to take care into that we need to take into consideration. Then it's protocol United Nations, where you bring all of the nations, you start political dimension. But the political dimension is going to be very much dictated by the constitutional parameters that we are going to clarify initially. I find this very important, and I'm enclosing it accordingly towards my discussion on the future constitution of Earth. What will need to be clarified here is, however, that we don't talk about some kind of physical differences here as we talk about H, letter H for human. That means a very comprehensive approach when we talk Homo sapiens. We don't talk about variety of outlooks that goes in the range of letter H here. We don't discuss the variations of the letter H. We discuss the construct of letter H itself. It has to be noticed here. We don't discuss the animals in the zoo. We discuss the zoo itself. So we discuss the human, not the variety of humans. We don't discuss the varieties of human at the physical point. We discuss the concept of human and the departure from the concept and variety of the excuses. Doesn't matter what excuse, in what color or in what shape. It is departure from the principle, departure from the sword, departure from the vertical point, departure from the Excalibur, departure from the standard. There is no rule here. We cannot describe that in the form of human shape, but we can describe it in the form of human conduct and human determination. Human determination does not have form or shape, but it is recognizable under the nomination determination and the correctness, because determination without correct direction is not going to be that much valued. It ends up being waste of time. So context is very important, and what I insist here as well. We on this planet do not have context to deliver. Our context, the context of our human has not been delivered. We do not have our constitution on place properly. We do not have it at all. One would ask why then we are talking about Adam and Eve. We are talking about the weaker side, the weaker point. We are talking about possibility of someone using your weaker side to get to you. Usually it falls on the blue dimension, which is associated to more diluted mind formation, which might be associated to the level of oxygen in the brain associated with people living on higher territories. On either might be valid also if we talk phenomenon closer to the poles, or when we are talking about physical height as mountain places, things like that. We certainly have phenomenon of Adam and Eve in terms of red versus blue, for example, most typical ways of differentiating. I wouldn't talk here about monkey versus fish, for example. I would talk here about simply mind formation, which is a matter of certain atmospheric conditions and lifestyle, very often associated to the lifestyle itself. And then we talk about the planet, a certain percentage of humanity of the planet, learning how to be opportunistic about certain such matters, and found themselves way too much relaxed about how they are going to categorize people, and certainly became very much interested to bring more people on the ship side of the equation. And as a result, we have now a reduced number of a regular human protocol. It became so much about opportunism and so much about throwing in a shipyard that we are technically losing our protocol human and losing the sense of normality anymore. The world became so much material and it became so much predatory versus the protocol human that one will need to start shouting about it, and one will need to start shouting constitution or else, or military dictatorship. What else is being drawn very much on surface is that the human, which we have not always yet seen being declared as such, continue to talk about artificial intelligence, and clearly they speak of Adam and Eve as a matter of artificial intelligence. Also, we have the phenomenon of secrecy. Therefore, we have certain structure of population that continue to live as secret, and we live by the secret, and live by the secret, and keep secret about the real history and real matters on the planet. They kept it secret because they want to take for themselves some kind of exceptional positioning, which means that otherwise they're not exceptional. Now that is enough already a confirmation that they otherwise would not be exceptional. Because if they are exceptional in much more natural levels, they would not need to keep secrets in order to be exceptional. Since we are not getting here the human protocol on absolute levels, how then we can talk about artificial intelligence when we do not have a definition of intelligence itself? If some humans continue to talk of Adam and Eve protocol as of artificial intelligence, then they are obliged first to deliver the human definition, of otherwise they are committing crime and should be charged immediately to stop spreading lies on the planet. It means everything today. It means everything in a human life to declare someone as artificial intelligence or anything. Basically, that is enslaving someone on a daylight by the society of secrets, by secret society. So therefore, secret societies for all of these times are actually discriminating humans and employing human slavery on daylight, on protocol, and in reference to Adam and Eve. That is not in reference to color of the skin, that is in reference to genetics. Therefore, we come to the Holy Grail itself, genetics being who is controlling it, who is manipulating it. Without establishing and bringing that on surface, it is pointless to discuss human in any form or shape to begin with. And this kind of conversation is going to be for another day waste of time, as long as we do not reach the Holy Grail itself, the DNA of human, and who is managing it and on what ground these rights have been acquired versus, for example, a person of my kind. We are going to say here, therefore, Muslim societies ended to be using or having eggs in a honey today as clearly they are for a time being. It is not going to be convincing us that we talk about first account human here. Let's be clear immediately. So holding to control the Holy Grail of humanity cannot be accepted. I am suspecting of this because they're the one today declaring the World Bank, and that can mean only one thing. It means Holy Grail. Holy Grail also sounds to me as a shouting woman. Hold a reference to a woman. Growl is a reference to squeaking voice of a shouting woman. Holy is a reference to a woman. We are talking about shouting woman, reference to a shouting woman, reference to natural priesthood of humanity would be in form of woman. We talk here about woman monarch. That is monarch. We talk monarch as we talk about the bees, the societies of bees, for example. We have main bee called monarch. That is what we are talking about here. We're talking about principal female identity. We talk about principal female temple, most probably, female protocol of Earth. It has been established that cosmic intelligence is closer to female, closer to woman. To a woman is giving birth. She is giving birth to two genders, female and male. Most of the animal exist in two genders as a matter of being more developed form, bioform. Human belong clearly in such category. I do not discuss here genders. I discuss mental concept, mental construct, mental dimension when it comes to metaphysics and conveying the universal energy. It comes to which mind or which brain is more available for conveying universal vibes. It doesn't have to be a rule. We talk about statistics. It may happen we have very high number of male sensitive people, very intelligent people. We would be talking here about percentage, about some kind of regularity, about what prevails and how genders prevail, on what side they prevail. We talk more about some kind of statistical records. So usually we say females prevail in that, and that, and then males prevail in that, and that, and that. It is not strict like cut with a knife polarization. Yet we talk about some kind of categorization, which never will be enough strict, never will be enough solid. So let's now notice what is in front of our eyes and let's understand it, how it tends to be. We have to also accept that it has been happening 2 millenniums of human history where woman has been taken out of societies. That has been mistake. And today we need to deal with it. We need to deal with it today as of where we are right now. In a consequence, we have today Middle East continue to talk about some kind of leadership, continuation of leadership. It is not like they are about to. I heard the other day they are talking about we are very close now to finally work out about our problems. Excuse me. I'm going to find that being covered up excuse because in all of the times they have been actually controlling the situation, and then we have certain percentage of these desperate people in their societies that they are being used constantly as an excuse for double-sided coin here or given fake information on where they are positioned versus the world. Versus the world, I suspect that Muslims at the moment are completely and totally controlling the entire planet. That there we have buried the concept of Adam and Eve, and there we have buried the entire event of manipulating and ongoing manipulation of the entire protocol human. I have said I suspect it, which means that we cannot now accept this ongoing manipulation that's going on media out there. We are nobody, we are desperate, we are nothing. While in the same time, they are happening in complete control of the Holy Grail concept itself. I have that closer in my life. I have life examples here to notice extreme duality in that personality. It's a very foxy personality, very pretending to be a personality. People that are very much accommodated to spread lies and to live out of lying, to live out of holding secrets. When someone is declaring itself as a holding a secret and living by a secret, can you really trust such people? When they declare themselves as a secret holders, can we talk about trust account here? I will, however, notice that Macedonians are being equally participant in this entire event by finding themselves were integrated in 2 millenniums history after Alexander, very much melting within the Middle Eastern population. It is very hard today to draw a line between the Macedonian genetic code and Middle Eastern. We have 2 millenniums of mixed bloodline here. It is equally hard to establish who is the master of the entire event. And how far West is equally not part of the entire enterprise of the shareholding which happened and emerged after Alexander, and where it might be that everything was even planned ahead to use Alexander as a bullet here, as a magic bullet to accomplish centralization of wealth, and then to take him out and then share the wealth. Similarly, it has been done with Hitler in last century. So clearly we have here already established practice on the planet to use the bull. By the way, they suitably made a monument out there in Wall Street out of it. So we certainly talk about 2 millenniums of event here, of oligarchies, very much accommodated to hold the bull, use the bull, and for centralization of wealth, and then next stage, taking the bull and sharing the wealth accomplished. I'm going to notice that Jesus would be equally in such category. Jesus managed to become present day's rock and roll event. Basically, it was about gathering the attention at one center. It was about centralization and then generating wealth at the point of centralization. That is what they need. They need the point of centralization. They need characters that are going to bring that level of centralization. Take out the character, share the wealth. So it is all about centralization point here. And of course, the players, that is, we talk mega dimension here, earth dimension, that are going to deliver that earth dimension centralization. Higher centralization, better news, higher attention, expected to be higher attention. That's what the game is all about, because they need centralization point. Here, leaders at some point believe they are the ones succeeding. It is all going their way, to the point where it turned to be it wasn't exactly about them in the combination, or they were not supposed to be. They are not being given space that much in their own event. In their own event. We have here duality of the title as well. That is where happens duality of the entire reality. Duality of how certain characters are going to be perceived, how far they are going to be respected or disrespected, how much going to be appreciated when they are dead, and when they are alive, talked behind their back, laughing behind their back, building, giving them stage in the same time, but also taking them the integrity. Building the stage, taking away integrity. That is where is Macedonia today. That is where Macedonia was in all of this time. That is the same Macedonia that is holding and controlling the throne of England as we speak, pretending they have nothing to do with Russia. Or Russia pretending they have nothing to do with England. While in substance we talk about one same headquarter, that is Macedonian imperial sabotage, Macedonian imperial conspiracy on first account. They need to still pay for their sins. And we talk about big stake account that will yet need to be paid off. High stake, high of game, high risk. High stake, high risk. You want your high laughter? Be prepared to pay price for it. Full stop. This might collide with my Adam and Eve approach today. However, when one speaks of mental configuration, lack of sense and moral correctness, sense of sainthood, of correctness and responsibility cannot be excused. Speaking of mental configuration, we are reaching here, I might reach again the word metaphysics or divinity itself, purity of soul, should I say, and not just purity, but also strictness of someone's configuration. So we talk therefore about peripheries using selecting characters that can be used for this kind of conspiracy to basically excavate their own people. If you cannot be entrusted, if one cannot be entrusted on such levels, then one cannot be called assistant equally. So we are talking here about weak mental context, construct, weak mental integrity, or very often would be used compromising people, blackmailing them on some kind of compromising accounts, especially from earlier ages, and literally building on continuously blackmailing someone and continuously even bringing that to level of some kind of game where it is not clear, are we joking or are we serious about it? Well, it is more like pushing someone to the edges and ending on the level of complete misusing, complete enslaving of the characters. There is very little credit to be given to prime territories here if we do not manage to understand each other. When I say I'm extracting this on temple dimension, and that's the only credit we can give to peripheries. Only on temple. The moment we reach conduct, specific level of monarchy, we lose the ground here. The only event we can talk about here is charity, truly. Yet look in what direction that is looking. No wonder we are where we are today. Step away from total cataclysm as a result of our own dysfunctionality, speaking of humanity here, not capable to recognize its correct value systems. In all of the time, waiting for someone as myself to open your eyes and waiting for this technology to provide me interface so I can speak to the entire planet. But if we are going to speak sainthood, let's be clear what exact mental configuration we are talking about, as well as it would not be about making movie in Hollywood either. I doubt that would be biological. I doubt we talk about organic event here. We talk about civilizational event, and that is why I am enclosing in my discussion in the title of today a very strong accent to civilizational development and organizational parameters, as that is how we have been crafting our human and our civilization historically. Nothing of that can be annulled. Plenty is on the stage here, so I'm going to keep it still very much to the temples. That is the reason why I immediately reached these Highlander approaches. So I'm going to keep it to the temples and keep it to the Holy Lands, because it is about recognizing someone's credibility, someone's seriousness, someone's positioning on the field as a reference to all of the times of the most responsible approaches and most responsible build of senses. And again, I'm going to call here for most specific standardization. I today have pulled out in this kind of summary approach, recognizing long history of manipulation, using human slavery on daylight, lying and manipulating people, using them and misusing them, and throwing them away as a garbage. As long as they all continue to be very much prevailing on accepting to tolerate such language being used in their cultural settings, these are not territories on which we can rely, which we can entrust. Territories that have not managed to bring themselves today to the same saintly levels should not apply for position either. It is equally wrong to bring the blame of what's happening presently in Western societies to its prime population. To the extent that they have prime population as well, that is nothing less predatory than the imperial structures. It is equally evident that Western prime societies have actually very high stake contribution to building of the present imperial cultural setting as it is today. They have been in that first initial conspiracy participating very well, if not even to set the bull Alexander, with intention, of course, to bring the game closer to their principal counts, which they certainly have managed, although they have certainly fallen from the grace. As I have noticed, the entire imperial setting of Western territories should understand who is the most to be credited with presently accomplished level of civilizational interface or theater. They should be highly aware due to what principal counts West has become prevailing imperial playground. They should never ever forget that. To find today these chaotic civilizations where principal houses continue to be disrespected, to me it's rather laughable, because excuse me, but they are the patrons to all of this, so you are certainly walking the complete confusion here when it comes to building some kind of moral code or code of correctness and value system as well. I think their value is going to be very confirmed at the level of certifying the temple levels of civilizational settings on the planetary levels, where with my constitutional work I am recognizing here the realm within its prime energetic settings, where any foreigner of these territories will certainly get second-hand account, including and especially when it comes to recognizing the imperial values of the territories. Speaking of imperial stamps, temple level, therefore, which at that point becomes planetary level, and where again these prime societies will hold strong planetary dimension and consciousness. It is another question of what kind of order we should be expecting to be on the grounds in 21st century, but certainly not to find universities that exclude this kind of population. But they are still thrown they're still thrown on the edges and expected to survive on their own terms and then to be blamed for whatever they do in consequence of being thrown on the edges. As this becomes the case scenario with any planetary extremism, which is today therefore planetary question. I think we're also beyond discussing the beauty here, because the beauty is the story of the beginnings. Let's make no mistake about it. Whenever we find it today, it is Excalibur Protocol actually, because it would have been the story of our beginnings. It's kind of common sense. To speak of this population as uglier equally does not hold the water. Therefore, temple dimension walks immediately after a realm protocol. Then we talk monarchy as a matter of much more specific conduct and civilizational parameters, and that is when we start arguing more seriously, especially in any new time. Temple dimensions should be sealed as more absolute settings. They would always reappear recalibrated. It is just a matter of the energetic construct itself, energetic vibes, and of course then they will need interface. If they lose the interface, they become we lose the continuation. Then would follow how they would be relating to their territories, how they would be employed on the territories. That is comes interface important. But let's do not get confused who becomes more principal owner of the territories and how everyone else should be behaving. That is not a joke discussion. It should be taken in serious manner, accomplished as later civilizational development, and will always be questionable on much more specific questions than identity-related questions. It would be a question of specific practices and very specific events, and that would be discussed in the light of this specific analysis. Today, equally, we need to bring some kind of conclusion of the latest civilizational development from this mainstream cultural platform and how we need to recalibrate on all of that. Speaking of main civilizational platform, no one can run away from and it should be new normal from now on. As of everything else we are doing in our lives, that would be monarchical level of question, where you bring various movements across the territories, where we start talking about cross bloodlines, and we still talk about certification of certain levels on certain matters, which should be built with some more specifics, obviously driven by the times in which we live. That is where I bring Excalibur protocol accordingly. There is plenty of engineering going on these levels at the moment when it comes to establishing what are the principal temple account. That will be a very much a matter of substance, not just matter of Hollywood approach. And of course, you need to bring some kind of trajectory. What will be critical here is to recognize always the plan. I would assume it would be very important to bring this planetary perspective, which becomes then equally matter of recalibration within today much more developed world. Much more complex events is happening here. One, in order to declare this kind of Excalibur level of principal temple account, will need to bring much more serious grasp about uh, not just relating to certain absolute levels, but basically relating to the present times as well, and bringing that kind of promissory functioning, because it all comes to the level of function as a matter, of course, of this planetary consciousness. It all becomes matter of very contemporary approaches. And if territories, especially on the peripheries, do not have that kind of cultural setting, we talk here also political philosophy. If you don't have this level of civilizational development, you don't bring that kind of civilizational cultural interface, there will be very little usage of your temple dimensions. So it becomes very important that we talk about continuous development here on the territories by much more established principles and parameters of what really represents development in any given time. Or we end up here having material world that is losing awareness of its own competence, awareness that they have lost the competence and that they have lost it 2 millenniums ago. Full stop. We have very serious institutional orders on Western territories, very high promise of delivering planetary level of function. However, we find number one, planet completely neglected. That is absolutely unacceptable from perspective of any more serious absolute temple level of position. If someone cannot bring the higher of temple level of positioning on level of planetary consciousness, we do not talk about higher temple level, or we do not talk about planetary level of temple consciousness. Higher level of consciousness brings element of competence. This is going to be very much area where we need to bring much more specific discussions. Where on one side we do not under disrespect the territories and the historic heritage of the territories, yet on the other side we cannot compromise what we have accomplished as a civilization. So if we are to bring assessment to the cultural assessment of the territories, there is not going to be confusion on what parameters that assessment should happen. Writing today's constitution, most of the philosophers of Western territories are in positions how to survive in their already established corridors of some kind of establishment society. they're riding on the path like horses on a horse race line, because they cannot afford to lose. They have become dependent of their own lifestyle. That is not temple dimension. We will never get temple dimension on such levels. Let's be perfectly clear about it. On the other side, we equally cannot compromise the competence of 21st century standards. To be brave, it's not going to be good enough. It's not going to be enough. Simply, it's not going to be enough. In order to step up in any given time, it should look like stepping up, or it is not stepping up. Now, standing out there and expecting to get a trophy is undignified for anyone's account. It is much more fair to recognize that we found ourselves today in certain kind of conversation, and that we admit to this conversation in most serious terms, so anyone can win later on within this kind of recalibration, recapitulation, or anyone would win something, and that something would be much more stable, something that anyone can take with themselves for the future, rather than to everyone to lose the ground, and we all lose the ground here, as where we are today. Full stop.